solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, have a seat there. And if you could please state and spell your name.
My name is Brittany Correll, Brittany Correll.
Good afternoon. Ms. Correll, can you tell us how are you currently employed?
I am a web developer at a company called Go Overseas.
And is that how you were employed back in last year in August?
Yep.
Sorry, let me get this out here real quick. And there we go. Okay. Back in August of 2020, and in particular in the days leading up to August 22nd, did you become aware that there was going to be an event in downtown Portland?
Yes.
How did you find out about it?
There are lots of Instagrams about different protesting events surrounding Black Lives Matter.
Had you been involved in some of those protests?
Yes.
When did you start becoming involved?
The night that George Floyd was killed.
And how, if you don't mind me asking, about how old are you?
I'm 26.
And did you attend a variety of different events and demonstrations?
Yep.
What are some of those types that you attended?
So there was a vigil up on.
Judge, I'm going to object to this as relevance.
I think it's laying some foundation, so for a brief background is fine.
Yeah, so starting from like the vigil for George Floyd, up in the Rose Park, all the way down through pretty much every night. There was stuff at Laurelhurst, or stuff down the Justice Center, stuff that started at Revolution Hall. Lots of marches, lots of different protests.
Okay. And when you came out on the on August the 22nd, what did you anticipate was going to happen there?
I knew that there was the other side that was going to be there, so we've called them like the alt-right, and those were it. I think I had basically heard about the weekend prior, and then it was made very clear to everyone on all of these same Instagrams that there was going to be another protest the next week, where they were going to be going down to the Justice Center, which is where a lot of our protests were held before.
Okay. And kind of, if you can remember roughly, what time did you arrive?
Somewhere midday, probably around noon or so. I don't remember exactly.
And where, when you got there, kind of what route did you come into the area?
Yeah, so I was always walking across the Hawthorne Bridge. I would always park directly on the other side. And then walking just to, I guess, the north side of the Justice Center. I walked down that street.
And when did you walk over towards what's called Chapman Square?
Is that what the big plaza is right in front of the Justice Center?
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll call it the big plaza in front of it.
Yeah, sorry.
So, and when you arrived there, kind of what did you see? What did you observe?
Yeah, so when I was getting there, there were a lot of like, I don't know, to me it was like a motorcade, like a lot of motorcycles and stuff like that coming down that way. There were a lot of people that I wasn't sure who was on what side kind of happening all down that street and then in front of the Justice Center. So I was walking around and I think that that's when most people were kind of arriving.
Okay. And what about the street on 3rd Avenue? Was it open and free to travel for cars to go through?
No.
Why not?
There were people in the road, there were motorcycles, there were cars, there was just a lot of different people.
Okay. And after you arrived there, did you kind of get the lay of the land and see who was where and what was going on?
Yeah, it kind of started slowly lining up that there was like half of the road was like the alt-right, and then the other side was like the left side, the BLM side of the protest,
Okay.
was the side on the park side.
And just generally, what did you see transpiring at the beginning?
At the beginning, it was loud. I don't remember a lot. I was really trying to figure out like where I was meant to be in all of this. So, lots of motorcycles, lots of loudness, and I was pretty used to being on like the plaza side of things because that's where a lot of us had been like protesting before. We were lining up kind of looking at the Justice Center. So that I was just kind of veering in that direction.
Did you see anyone out there on that day that is here today?
Yes.
And who is that?
Alan Swinney.
And you kind of briefly below, but you pointed towards Mr. Swinney, who's seated here?
Yep.
Okay. And was it hard for you to pick him out or see him?
No, he's pretty tall. Pretty easy to pick out of a crowd.
Is he bigger than most people in the crowd?
Yeah.
Was there anything else that was distinguishing about him?
Like the, I don't know, the visor mask kind of thing, and you can see like the paintball gun that was on him. He also has I think it says Proud Boy or Proud tattoo, and I think we'd all been made aware of it, especially the weekend before, what he looked like.
Okay. Perhaps we can look at states. Let's go to. I believe it's States Exhibit 41. It'll come up actually on the screen in front of you so you don't have to crane your neck and look around. Right. Your Honor, the state is going to ask questions about this and offer States Exhibit 41 at this time.
Objection.
It is received.
Is this the individual that you have referred to as Mr. Alan Swinney?
Yes.
Is that how he looked on that particular day?
Yes.
And did you see him carrying some of those very items? You mentioned a paintball gun.
Yep.
When you first arrived, did you see the firearm that's located on his hip?
No.
Later, did you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So, you said he kind of stood out. Is he someone that you watched and kind of saw what happened with him?
Yeah, I definitely paid attention to him. He was the one that was kind of like wandering throughout the crowd. It seemed like he was often pulled over when things were getting rowdier in different areas.
What was he doing?
He would get into like verbal altercations with people. Like you could hear him yelling at people. At one point, he told me he would, quote, he said, "I'll fuck you up, sweetheart," when he pointed his paintball gun at me.
What did you do or say to him prior to that?
Yeah. The only thing that I really said to people, the only things that I had been doing at that point were me yelling like Black Lives Matter, and any of the other chants. That's the one that I remember yelling though. I don't think I actually said anything directly to him though.
Well, in that picture in States 41, I see he's wearing the visor helmet like you're talking about. It's the arm shield, the paintball gun, the knife, body armor. What were you wearing?
I was wearing a t-shirt and leggings and a face mask, just like a COVID face mask.
Did you have a helmet on?
No.
Did you have goggles on?
No.
So he said that to you. Are there people between you and him?
No, at that point it was just me. Well, there were people in front of him that had shields, so yes.
Okay. So tell me about those people. What's going on with those people?
Yeah, there were a lot of people that were doing kind of different things. There was all of the people that had shields had drilled screws into them, so they would, if you got too close, they would hit you so that you would bleed.
Action.
Overruled.
So you described those shields, and then and you talked about Mr. Swinney pacing around behind them. Was he doing anything over the top of them?
Yeah, so he would point the paintball gun. Just remember, he would always point it sideways, or at least when I saw him. Um, and then there was when he would like mace people. So shooting lots of paintballs, pointing the paintball gun, macing people, yelling at people.
Well, let's look at State's Exhibit 35. And you had just described kind of him pointing it sideways. Does State's Exhibit 35 exhibit what you were seeing?
Yeah, I think I'm actually right in front of this.
Okay. And when you say in front, you can't see you on this particular frame, but
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. The guy in front of him had a pink bat that he kept like threatening at multiple points, and
Objection.
So let's focus on what Mr. Swinney was doing more than what other people were doing.
okay. Are these the shields that you talked about? You can see just kind of the top of them right there?
Yeah.
Okay. And from this vantage point, we see the gun point over the top. Was this where Mr. Swinney was, and did you see him shoot the paintball gun?
I saw him shoot it multiple times. I don't remember every single time that he was shooting paintballs.
Okay. And when you first arrive, what's going on as far as, I mean, obviously, I'm going to use some broad terms. There's a left side, BLM. There's the right side, which is Mr. Sweeney's group. Like, are there people on the left side that are either throwing things or doing things to start off?
I don't know where it started off. There are definitely things going both ways.
Okay, both ways. And as you're watching, what is Mr. Sweeney doing?
He was just pacing around. I don't know exactly what he was doing right at the beginning, though.
Okay. Now, at some point in the event, do you move away from that particular location?
Yeah. At some point, I got maced right here, and there's a little building in the plaza, and I myself and one other woman got hit directly, and I went behind a building and I threw up, and then I came back.
Okay. And when you came back, where did you go?
Pretty much right back to the front.
Okay. We had earlier talked about that fire. Did you see Mr. Sweeney still there when you returned?
Yeah.
What was he doing at that time?
Pretty much the same thing. I think at some point he was like yelling at a press person, but he was kind of all over the place. There was a lot of times where I was focusing on other things like people with the bats and stuff like that. So.
Okay. And at some point, did you see him pull out a firearm?
Yes.
And can you tell us what was going on when that happened? What you were seeing?
So the first thing that I remember, I was standing kind of over by there's like a van that you see in a lot of the images and the videos. So over on the side of that where I'm like directly in front of him. And the first thing that I remember seeing is all of the people that were in front of him kind of duck. And I don't know why that's the first thing that I remember, but a bunch of people ducked, and then I saw the gun.
Okay. You go to State's Exhibit.
Are you going to offer 35?
Yes, if I can offer State's Exhibit 35.
No objection.
And then if we can go to State's Exhibit 36. Does this image capture what you were just describing?
Yes.
I'll offer State's Exhibit 36.
No objection.
What'd you do when you saw that?
I don't remember exactly what happened. I just remember like I was scared, and so I think I just like panicked. A lot of that piece of like what I did next kind of is a little bit lost in my memory. I just remember like finding my friends, and I don't remember if I ran. I don't remember if I crawled. Like I just remember being afraid, and then finding some of the people that I knew were there.
Was the gun pointed in your direction?
Yes.
Were you afraid for your life?
Yeah.
State's Exhibit 37. Does State's Exhibit 37 depict, just from a slightly different angle, what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It will offer State's Exhibit 37.
No objection.
After you ran away, did you see kind of the things that happened next?
Honestly, that like I think that's like where kind of the brawl happens and it like kind of breaks through. But I feel like after that, a lot of my like timelines like messed up, to be honest.
Were you pretty scared at that point?
Yeah.
Well, help me understand a little bit kind of where you're standing in relation to Mr. Swinney.
Yeah. So there was a bigger gap in between at this point. And so he's behind just like a few people of shields, and I'm just like a little bit further back, kind of next to that van. So the van's like over here on my left, I guess. And I'm like further back towards the curb. We were like initially when things started a little bit more in the middle of the road, but I don't know, the gap got bigger and bigger over time, I guess.
Did you see anyone pointing a gun at him?
No.
Were there still objects being thrown back and forth between the two sides?
Yeah, I feel like I remember after I saw the gun, I mean, it was so loud and chaotic. I remember at one point there's just like one louder ting that I was nervous was a gunshot. I just didn't know whether it was or wasn't.
Okay. What were the people doing around you, both immediately prior to and then when he pulled out the gun?
Honestly, it's hard for me to remember exactly what happened right there.
Okay. Was there anyone immediately running at him or charging him or anything
No.
of that nature?
No, not from what I remember now.
I'm going to show you a video clip from State's Exhibit number 60. I'm going to be offering State's Exhibit 60. Certainly.
Look at it on my computer really quick.
We'll just hold on that before we play it.
No objection.
All right, it's received.
Does that, when you talked about, you said there were some like motorcycles and things, does that kind of, is this what you're talking about when the motorcycles were arriving?
Yeah, so at this point, I wasn't directly here. This is like kind of what I saw like happening in front of me though, because I was down on, it's hard for you to see what I'm pointing at, but I was down in this street here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So not in this exact location you were, but you were seeing this go by.
exactly.
And so if you would go ahead and play that. essentially, is this how they arrived?
Yeah, from what I was saying, again, I was like on that side street, but yeah.
Was it loud from what you heard?
Yeah, it was incredibly loud pretty much the entire time.
We go to State's Exhibit 61. I'm going to offer State's Exhibit 61.
No objection.
It's received.
I'll offer State's Exhibit 62.
How would you object to this one?
Okay.
Would you like me to have the witness?
Um,
Would you like to have this discussion out?
yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break.
We'll go back to the jury rooms.
Right, what's the basis of the
You can go ahead.
Foundation.
Okay.
Or we can have the witness watch this and then
Okay.
have her talk about the foundational aspect of it.
All right. So I don't, does she need to watch the whole thing for us to establish the foundation? I mean, if she does, fine.
That's a fair point, I'll pause it. Is this a fair and accurate representation of how it looked that day as you were perceiving it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna allow 62 in. Are there other videos in this that you're intending to introduce with this witness that the
A
defense
long
has
series
objection
of videos, Your
I
Honor.
do have a question in it.
to? All right.
Did you witness this personally?
I don't remember. This is just how it looked throughout the evening, or throughout the entire protest.
Our objection stands.
Okay, I'm gonna admit it over your objection. It clearly shows Mr. Swinney during the charged, or during the date and time charged. What other videos are you introducing that the defense might have an objection to? And let's just get
States
through this little
Exhibit
break.
62 through 75, and then States Exhibit 80 through 83.
I mean, it's all just video that's, the handgun video, 81, I have no objection to because the witness has already testified that she saw Mr. Swinney pull a gun, so I don't have any objection to 81. 80 is the same thing, no objection. There's video exhibit 75. So I guess I'll just keep my objection, I'll remove my objection to 80 and 81 with the understanding that Your Honor is going to allow the remainder of them in.
And Your Honor, I apologize. The one video that would be offered probably through Ms. Stewart is video number 70.
Yeah.
That one is the one that she shot. But other than that, these would be the ones that I would offer from.
All right, so they're from that day. Mr. Swinney is, I assume, captured in all of them.
Yes, that is my memory of going through, is that I tried very hard to screen out the ones where he was not captured in them, and it was only the ones that he was
Okay.
captured in.
I think any that are not of Mr. Swinney, I would sustain the objection as being cumulative and prejudicial.
I'm happy to just kind of quickly go back through and make sure, but that was my intent when I was going through them, was to screen out those ones. It would take me less than 5 minutes to do
Okay,
so.
well, why don't we do that, and then the parties, anyone that needs to use the restroom can use the restroom. Ms. Correll, if you want to step down, you're welcome to use the restroom as well. For everyone, just,
Facebook blocked a half
Going to
hour.
offer States Exhibit 62.
all right, it's received over this defense objection.
We can publish that at this time, please. States Exhibit 63, the state's going to offer at this time.
Okay. It's received.
Go ahead and look up. State 64. And States Exhibit 71. Oh, I'm sorry, I may have skipped over States Exhibit 65. My apologies, that's one I wanted to see. Can you back it up to the 50-second mark, please? And Ms. Crow, would you mind, is it okay if you take off your mask for this part testimony? Thank you. Are you able to see yourself in this particular frame? And could you just, let me see, do we have that?
Oh, we have a,
Okay. Maybe if you could just turn around for this particular part, if this works. We'll see if it does. There. Is that you right there?
Yeah.
And is that, we can't see a lot of you, but is that how you were appearing on that particular day?
Yeah, you can also see me in the last video too for a second, where he points the paintball gun right in front of me.
We can continue playing. Now can we go to States Exhibit 71, please? Did you observe that type of activity that day?
Yeah, I saw him shoot paintball guns multiple times.
And where they were moving with the shields forward?
I don't remember the time that they were moving back and forth with the shields.
Okay. Move on to State's Exhibit 72. State Exhibit 73, would offer it as well.
I think these were all, let's just say I've received all of them.
Okay. State's Exhibit 73, can you please play this one? '74. '75. At this time, Ms. Correll, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 80. And when we're done, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, okay? Are you doing okay?
Yep.
Is that what you observed Mr. Swinney do on August 22nd?
Yes.
Go to State's Exhibit 81. And then State's Exhibit 82, please. Pause the video. Do you know what van that is that's being damaged there?
Yeah, this one was at a lot of the protests. I remember we had a name for it, but I don't remember what it is in the moment. But they would pass out like food and stuff like that. They also usually had a lot of supplies in their car to like help with tear gas and stuff like that.
Did it have like BLM sprayed on it and stuff?
I don't remember exactly.
Okay, but it was associated with the left side.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and play. Now, do you remember kind of how long this stuff was going on for?
Honestly, no, it felt like forever, but I honestly don't remember how long it actually went.
Can you just kind of generally describe how it ended or spread apart or what happened?
So you can see kind of people start like breaking out of the shields, and that's where like I think the chasm like started to get a little bit bigger between the two sides, and we start getting pushed further back into the plaza. So you see like a lot of these videos start to get further and further back into the plaza. And then all of a sudden, the groups kind of shifted, so we were we were like perpendicular to the curbs at some point. And then you can see like a group of umbrellas and shields. I think it was actually just umbrellas on our side and shields on their side. And then there's like people kind of throwing things back and forth, and there's people yelling at each other from both sides. And then it slowly we like pushing them back and out towards like outside the Justice Center down south, I guess.
And then once they kind of left that area, did that essentially end kind of the push?
Yeah, pretty much. I think at that point, I wasn't involved in. Some cops were rounding up people, I think that were in the plaza, but I wasn't involved in that. I followed down south, whatever that street is that the Justice Center is on. I kept following down south a little bit until they were fully gone, and then I had a friend come pick me up and drive me home.
Okay. I want to ask you about, we can certainly see through those videos the people on the right side or the alt-right side, but we can't see the alt-left side necessarily. Were there people in like black blocks type clothing?
Yeah.
Okay. Were there people, this is a mid-August day in Portland, sunny from the video, were there people in t-shirts and shorts?
Yeah, some people were. I know my friends showed up in like t-shirts and shorts when they showed up later.
Were there people that had kind of the basic COVID mask on
Lots of people.
with no like goggles or helmets or things like that?
Yeah.
Did you see people either get shot by Mr. Swinney with a paintball gun or have paintball marks on them, things of that nature?
I saw people with paintball marks, but I didn't see anybody specific like get hit, like track a bullet from his paintball gun to a
Okay, you weren't doing like this,
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
like
It
back
was
and forth with your
a
head.
lot of when you hear a paintball gun is like move out of the way or duck or make yourself smaller.
Okay. Were you afraid that day?
Yes.
What was making you afraid?
It's an incredibly chaotic event, and I think we were all prepped for. We'd all seen the videos from the weekend before. I think that the riot is very well known for being pretty.
Well, let me ask you what that day was making you afraid.
So having somebody say, "I'll fuck you up, sweetheart," and then pointing a paintball gun at you, and getting maced, and seeing him pacing back and forth, hearing lots of people just try to scare you with tasers. So you can hear throughout all of the videos, you hear people like clicking tasers, and multiple points I had at people's shields, just like shoving me, and at the end of the evening, somebody threw, in my head it's a firework, I don't actually know what it was, but it hit my side, and it's when we were kind of like, again, perpendicular and moving out.
Object to this is 404,
So I think she's explaining how it kind of dispersed, but if, clarifying questions about whether Mr. Swinney himself was personally responsible are probably appropriate at this point.
Okay. What are the things that Mr. Swinney did that made you feel threatened
I
or
think
scared?
the biggest one is just having, the "I'll fuck you up, sweetheart," and pointing a gun directly at me, with it being like this far away from my face.
And just because I want to be very clear for the record, is that a paintball gun?
Yes, that was a paintball gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And certainly that was one piece. Were there other things that Mr. Swinney did that made you feel afraid that day?
Yeah, him with, he consistently was pointing his paintball gun. He was consistently macing people. I did not see him mace specifically. I saw him pull out his mace and say, "You're all done," and later got maced in very much like that same setting. I don't know who it was that maced me. My recollection is that I tied those two together, but obviously I don't know. It's like finger hitting the trigger and like watching it go into my eyes.
Okay. And what about the firearm piece?
Yeah, and then basically moving into like, again, all I saw was all of these people duck, and then seeing the firearm, and then you hear like a lot of little, obviously there's a lot of chaos, but then you hear like multiple bangs. I'm assuming now that that was rocks, but in the moment there was one where I was like, I don't know what that is. That is all I remember from that like specific piece of it.
And was the firearm pointed in the direction of other people?
Yeah, there was a bunch of us there.
And that includes you as well?
Yes.
Were you afraid that you would be shot?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.